Hello everyone, in this video we will explain how to connect Raspberry Pi RP2040 with W5100S module by writing Micropython scripts to achieve the effective DNS resolution of network domain names. First, let's take a look at the table of contents of this chapter. It mainly divided into protocol introduction and introduction of WIZnet Ethernet chip with test demo. Chapter 1. Learn about DNS. DNS means the domain name system. It is core service in the Internet. This is a distributed database used to map domain names and IP addresses to each other. Enables users to access the Internet more conveniently, instead of having to remember the IP number string that can be read directly by the machine. In the Internet, each computer has a unique identifier called an IP address. However, IP addresses are composed of numbers and are not easy for people to remember, so we usually use domain names to access websites. When we enter a domain name in the browser, the computer sends a request to the DNS server. Ask what the IP address corresponding to this domain name. The DNS server looks up its database, find the corresponding IP address and return it to the computer. Then, the computer can access the website through this IP address. In general, the DNS protocol is a process of converting domain names into IP addresses, allows people to access the Internet through domain names that are easy to understand and remember, rather than complex IP addresses. This greatly improves the ease of use of the Internet, and allows the website to operate without affecting users changing the IP address of their server. Next, let's take a brief look at the steps of DNS. 1. The client makes a domain name resolution request and sends the request to the local domain name server. 2. When the local domain name server receives the request, first query the local cache if there is such a record. The local domain name server will directly return the query results. 3. If there is no such record in the local cache, then the local domain name server will directly send then the root domain name server. The request to the root domain name server returns to the local domain name server the address of a primary name server for the queried domain. 4. The local domain name server takes another step up. The returned domain name server sends the request. 5. The primary domain name server queries its own cache. If there is no such record, it returns the address of the relevant subordinate domain name server. Repeat step 4 until the correct record is found. 6. The local domain name server returns the result. Save to cache for next time. At the same time, the results are returned to the client. The advantages of DNS mainly include easy to remember, flexibility, load balancing, security. DNS application scenarios include web browsing, email, internet phone calls, online games, cloud services. Chapter 2. WIZnet Ethernet chips. W5100S, W5500 and W6100 are the three mainstream Ethernet chips. From the table we found that 1. W5100S and W6100 support 8-bit data bus interface. Network transmission speed is better than W5500. 2. W6100 supports IPv6 and it is hardware compatible with W5100S. If users who already use W5100S need to support IPv6, they can easily upgrade to W6100. 3. W5500 has more sockets than W5100S, with larger send and receive buffers. Advantages of WIZnet Ethernet chip. WIZnet's Ethernet chip uses hardware protocol stack. Not only can it improve the efficiency of data transmission, it also reduces the workload of the MCU to allow low-end MCUs to be connected to Ethernet. Chapter 3. Simple demonstrations. Let's take a brief look at the flowchart first. First, initialize the SPI-related pins. Then set the network settings to dynamic IP acquisition mode. After that, determine whether the IP has successfully obtained. If obtained, print the obtained IP information. If dynamic IP cannot be obtained, use static IP. After that, we could resolve the domain name. Then let's take a look at the preparations needed for this test. In terms of software, we need Tiny Code Editor. For hardware, we need W5100S I/O module and Raspberry Pi Pico development board. Or we can directly use WIZnet's W5100S EVB Pico development board. In addition, we need to connect micro USB interface data cable and network cable to the RJ45 of the board. For SPI settings, please refer to the table above. Next, take a look at the code part. We open the DNS.py file directly. First, you can see that SPI is initialized in the W500 init function, as well as registering SPI-related pins and reset pins into the library. The next step is to activate the network and use DHCP to configure network address information. Configure static network address information when DHCP fails. When configuration is not successful, information about registers related to the network address will be printed out. It can help us better troubleshoot problems. Finally, then perform a DNS resolution operation and it print the resolved IP address. Then we run the program directly. You can do this in the window below. From the printed configuration information, you can see the resolved IP address. This video ends here. Thank you everyone for watching. If you want to know more, please leave a message in the comment area or contact me via private message.